All right, so I'm here with Vivian and your horse. What's her name?
Diamond.
Diamond. And can you tell us why you brought Diamond over today?
For about a year, Diamond and I have been trying to work on flying lead changes, and she's got a really nice flying lead change from the right to the left. And does it, I just take my leg off, and she knows what we're doing, and she happily will do it. If I ask the other way, then we have the opposite problem. She, I think, knows what I want, but she just gives me a hard no. Either braces on the reins, tosses her head, dumps her shoulders, runs off. We've had all of those, sometimes all at once, and sometimes just one or the other. So yeah, I guess we've worked through videos a little bit, and it wasn't really getting any better, so I'm here.
So you kind of brought her here hoping maybe I'd ride her and see if I can feel anything that maybe we haven't seen in a video, something like that. One of the things I always get in the comments of videos is, oh, if a horse is having trouble something, it must be physical. Like people really go to that in the comments. So can you just tell us, what you feel like her soundness level is, if you think it's physical, if you've checked that out, anything around the physical side of things?
So last year when I first started doing this and the problem came out, she was perfectly sound, happy horse. Then over the winter, she actually did have a minor injury to her hind right that all healed up. She was on rest for 4 months, and we did not work at all. And then she was brought back slowly. And I didn't ask for any lead changes for a long time. That's why it's been taking me this long anyway. And yeah, she's sound again now. The vet cleared her. We just got a new saddle because my old one was just a very slight pinch in the shoulder. But before last year, her saddle fit, and she still told me no. So I think we ruled out the physical things.
Okay.
That it's more of a mental thing.
Okay, very good. So lead changes can be one of the more challenging things to teach horses for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons I think is there's just a lot of ways they could not do a lead change. Like you said, they can go fast, they can brace up, they could have the wrong flexion, they could go too fast, too slow, they could kick out. There's just a lot of different things that could go wrong. And some other horse training things that we do are just not that complicated. The other thing that I think makes it challenging is it's happening at a canter, which is a fast pace for a horse to learn and understand what we're asking for. It's also a faster pace for the rider to be able to react and have really good timing. Now, I know Vivian's a very good rider. She trains horses and stuff, and I know she's doing a very good job with that. Have you trained a lot of other horses to do lead changes?
I'm probably about 6 so far. I've cleaned up quite a few lead changes. Probably on about 30 horses, I've cleaned them up, but starting from scratch, I've only done about 6, so I've done a lot more cold starting than finishing the horses.
Okay. Yeah, so I just bring that up because there is a timing aspect to lead changes to where the inside front foot is on the ground, and when that front foot is on the ground and the weight is committed to that side, there's 2 things that are helpful to cue in that moment. One of which is the hind feet are available because they're in the air at that time period. The other thing is that the weight is committed here, and it makes it a more obvious shift here. So in other words, if the weight is already leaning to the inside of the circle, it makes it hard to get the horse to shift their weight to the outside. So that's one of the things that I'm wondering to myself, if the timing was even better, if that would help. But at the same time, I will sometimes not think about the timing when I'm asking a horse to change leads because I want them to understand the cues and not be dependent on the rider being perfect timing. I think sometimes really, really high-level riders can get horses to do things and then other people can't. And for us as trainers, I think it's our job to get our horses to where anybody could cue it and do it. Like you could put more of a beginner rider or a rider that maybe doesn't have experience, and like the goal would be, could they get on your horse and give them the cue that you've taught her and have her have a strong enough connection to it that even without perfect timing, they could still get the lead change. And also I think, for showing and ranch versatility, when we're doing the reining pattern or asking for a lead change, we want it pretty dependable where it's like we could be thinking about something else and just give them the cue and boom, it's there. We'd like to get it to that level, right? So that's kind of what we're after, is not just can we make the horse get a lead change by going real fast or going over a pole, but can we get it to where we can just release the pressure. So my cue for the lead change is taking the leg off. And so it's like, could we do that and immediately have the horse change lead? So we're going to take a look at it and see if we can get a little stronger connection. And we'll show you some of the challenges that Vivian's been having with her. And I think I've already seen you ride and do that. And so I would like to ride her and test a few things and see how that goes. So I think we'll just jump right into it.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. All right, so I'm just gonna check a few of her systems. There's a handful of things that the better the horse understands them, the easier it should be theoretically to get a lead change. Having said that, you can do a lead change on any horse. Like you could have a colt that's got a couple of rides, and as long as they can canter, you could get a lead change on them. But that doesn't equal them being able to change leads anytime, any place, anywhere. So in other words, the mechanics of a lead change, of going from a right lead to a left lead or vice versa, is a natural movement for little weanlings to run around the pasture and do. Some of the other movements that we ask horses to do, they're not as likely to do them out in the pasture. You know, they're just not going to do that. Where lead changes is something from the time this horse was a weanling, she's been doing them periodically. And so it is a natural movement. The question is, can the human ask the horse for this movement and have the horse understand that that's what we ask for? So to me, once a horse gets as trained as she is, now we're kind of relying on the control of the horse and the ability to adjust their body and their weight and do things to get the lead change. There's a time period where a horse does not have a lot of body control that you can set up more of a pattern, and they can change leads based on balance and whether or not they feel balanced and wanting to feel balanced. But she's way past that. You know, that's in like the first 3 months. And every once in a while, I'll go ahead and mess with it on a horse that doesn't have a lot of training yet. Once they have a lot of training, then I'm going to go through all these systems checks that we're about to do with her. So the first one is going to be the flexion. Can I isolate her nose, meaning can I have her nose to the right and can I ride her shoulders to the left? Okay. And I'm going to do these kind of slowly at a walk here just to get a baseline of how they feel. But ultimately, you would need to be able to do this trot and lope as well, okay? So that feels pretty good, and she's stepping off my inside leg. Check it the other way. So you want to be able to do a counter bend with it, but you also want to be able to just exaggerate inside bend as well, okay? And I would say check, she has that. The next one that I'm going to mess with is control of the haunches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ride her in a haunches out position. So I'm riding to the left, but I'm pushing her hip to the outside. And I'm just kind of checking how well she's yielding there. And now when I did this, I lost a little bit of flexion. So that was just, so she moved her haunches willingly, but her nose wanted to get straight there. Okay, so that's just a quick observation that I would like to feel that be a little bit more solid. You can kind of even see it there a little bit. And so what I would have you do there, Vivian, is if she starts arguing with you or if you lose the nose when you're moving her haunches, stop and see how she wants to turn right there. I'm just going to hold this position. I'm going to put her hip back where I had it. There it is. Now I'm waiting. I'm waiting for her to give to that left rein. Right there it is. And that's what we're going to use to build connection. So what's kind of a misconception is just because we started at a faster gait doesn't mean we have to finish at the faster gait. So if I try something at a canter, I may not get what I wanted at the canter, but I'm going to slow down, trot, walk, stand still until I get that position. The horse tipping their nose in, the softness, them stepping off my leg. So I won't release the pressure, but I will make the puzzle easier by slowing down. Does that make sense? So that's a really important step. And so when I say, you know, it's not enough to just be able to hold this rein in this position in this leg. I'm going to measure the quality of response based on three components. Well, I should say two components. One component is how quickly did the horse arrive at the answer? Okay, how long did it take for them to find the answer? Okay, so again, I'm pushing her haunches in. Now I feel brace in my left rein, so I'm holding and waiting for her to get soft there. There she got soft, and then we're releasing. The second component is how little did it take? How much did it take? Did it take a lot? Did my leg really come on strong? Did my hands have to do a lot, or was it very soft and subtle? And these are two of the ways that I'm going to measure the quality of understanding. And you can even hear her blowing out there and relaxing. And so that tells me there was just a little bit of brace in that position, okay? if she didn't need to relax after doing that, then that, you know, wouldn't, meaning we want that to be more of a neutral thing for her, where that doesn't bring up a little bit of defensiveness. Okay, you saw that little head toss there. Move the hip in, we lost the nose. So I got the hip in, I'm holding and waiting. But I definitely want to get it to where her first response is to give to that pressure and not give that little bit of extra. There we go. And I think you've already been on the right track with that. We were discussing this a little bit off camera, of that you've been learning to kind of hold and wait for them to give versus us using our hands and kind of taking it. And that's definitely a key a key element to training. Is one of the most fundamental ingredients of good horsemanship is if you apply pressure to a horse, steady pressure. So this could be from the halter, from a leg cue, from anything. Let's say this hand is the horse's body. If you apply pressure here, let's say this is the rider's leg. If you apply pressure, now it's the rider's job to hold and wait for the horse to step off. And then notice this hand didn't follow it. It wasn't like that. We apply pressure, the horse steps off. Now, if we want the movement to continue, it can be on, off, and just keep going and allow the horse to step off. The same thing is true a lot of times for our reins. If I pick up a feel here, I'm gonna hold and wait for her to give to it and not continue to take it. And it's very easy to be kind of pulling or pushing our horses into it. It's like, it's more human nature to do that than it is to hold and present like a post feel. You know, like if you tie your horse up to a post, if the horse leans into it, that post isn't going to pull any harder. It's just holding whatever distance that rope was. When the horse gives to it, it immediately releases. That's the feel that we want to have for most situations when we're training them. So now I'm going to ask her to move her haunches to the inside of the circle. Now I'm calling these exercises, and I'm going to call the lead change maneuver. Now right there we got Bracy. See, we got Bracy. So I'm holding and I slowed down. I'm holding and waiting. Not gonna let the hip go away. See, she's trying to get out of it by wiggling around. Every time she takes a step, I move her hip back in, but I continue the hold. There was the give. She just kind of got soft, her head came down and in. It would be very easy for a strong rider in those moments to power through and just keep going. But if you continue to travel, every step they take, and there's say 10 pounds of pressure on the rein or 5 pounds of pressure on my leg, we're actually reinforcing that much pressure into the cue. But by me stopping and just holding and making it easier and waiting, the theory is she's going to get to the yield quicker, and she's going to have a higher level of connection to the yield because she made the decision and things were slow enough that mentally she could understand and focus on what I was doing. If we continue it at a faster gait, she's likely to not understand what that was. Now there again is a little brace. So we're going to work on that in just a second. But right now I'm still playing with the haunches. So when I'm playing with the haunches, I'm ending up having this conversation more about her flexion and her contact, but the predicament that I'm putting her, the bind that I'm putting her, if you will, is playing with the haunches. Haunches in or haunches out. So in other words, theoretically, if I just walk and trot around and I pick up a feel, that's pretty easy, theoretically, right? It's a lot harder for her to give to that bit with vertical flexion and lateral flexion while I'm asking her for haunches in or haunches out. So there's an association to me with my leg being on and picking up this contact of her getting a little bracy. And what's a little bit ironic about this is it's my left leg that's coming on, and this would be setting her up for the left to right lead change. So I'm kind of rehearsing the yields that she'll need to have at a trot but she'll need to have at a lope for the flying lead change there. Because see, if I just go ahead and pick up the reins here, she gets off pretty good. There's no leg cue on right now. But watch, if I add the leg, this is where she's been kind of bracing up to it a little bit more. Another kind of a good lesson point that's coming up in my mind right now is most people understand that you need to end and release on the thing that you want the horse to do, okay? That's a pretty commonly understood horse training concept. Pressure motivates, the release teaches, so you release the horse when they're doing the right thing. But what a lot of people don't focus on enough, especially with a well-trained horse. In other words, the more advanced the horse gets, to me, the more important what I'm about to say becomes. And what I'm about to say is there is a start, a middle, and an end to every sequence of things that we ask a horse to do, whether it's standing still and walking off, or you're cantering around and you ask them to stop, or you're asking for haunches, and whatever it is, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is when you initially cue the horse. The middle is how long they're doing whatever the thing is for. And then the end is how soft and what position were they in when you quit doing it. And so what I'm feeling with this horse is she needs a little bit more of the beginning. Like we can kind of end on the right note each time, but we need the beginning, her first response to that pressure coming on, to immediately be yes and be soft, instead of having a little bit of a brace feel to it right away. So right there, when she was giving me the business for picking up a feel, what I did is I went ahead and I hugged her, aka I squeezed with my legs. So it's good to hold with the reins, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you got to hold here, and now watch, I'm going to squeeze with my legs. And she also thought forward there. That's not the answer either. The answer is get soft. There. Now I'll release. So I think this is also going to be a really important exercise to put into your program. I can just feel that right away. That you want to be able to, you first pick up the reins, and then I'm going to slowly squeeze with both legs. And the answer is get soft. Maintain forward and get soft, and then I'll take that pressure away. Go here, squeeze, get soft. Thank you. So we kind of call that hugging them. And that, to me, that just takes it to a little bit deeper level. So we're not just relying on the pressure from our hands to ask them to give. We're also adding leg. Do you have a question to that? So Vivian's asking, why would I not use my legs first? My legs are not for me, they're not the cue to get soft here. My legs are reinforcing the hands. And her brace, it's associated with both. But she needs to give to the reins right away. That has to be her first response. And she has to be able to do that with the squeeze happening. And she associates legs with go more. So I don't necessarily need her to just get soft from my legs immediately without the reins. I need both. She needs to be able to turn loose to the control of both of those things happening. I mean, a person could, if it was just about the legs, like say you had a horse that you were riding them and you just felt like you had to ride them like this, like if your legs touch them, they're going to speed up or get worried, but they're fine if you use your reins. That type of horse, I might play with just using my legs first and no reins. But because I feel like hers is associated initially with the rein contact, I would go to that first and then add the leg. Because I think that's what's happening also when you go to change leads. You have a little bit of a feel with your reins, and then the leg comes on, and then she gets bracy. So I think we're actually replicating that process just at a walk here. So let's go ahead and do that again. Now right there, as soon as my reins came on, she got soft immediately. That was good. Let's go ahead and do that at a trot now. So I pick up a feel, squeezing, soft, I release. Now, one of the things that also, there's a chance that I might be doing that I think might be a little different than what you do. When I apply the feel, I'm doing it really slowly and really soft. So on one hand, it's making it easier on that way. On the other hand, it's giving her more room to make those decisions to brace up. And there's times to do it differently, but I think with her, when you're going slow like this, it's like what I would call signing her up, meaning I'm giving her lots of room with my hands by having such soft feel there that there's plenty of room for her to tell me what she's thinking, because I want to know. right? And then I want to fix it from there. If I were to pick up a strong feel immediately, she might just stay there and kind of be obedient to it and not tell me that there's brace there. Vivian's like, no, she won't. Okay, so some horses, you can control them with a stronger feel more, and I don't want to do that. I want her to tell me where things are at. So when I'm testing things, I'm kind of applying a little bit of pressure and kind of seeing what happens versus me trying to ride them strong and just control everything. You know, like I'm not trying to do that. Now, so even though she has trouble going from her left to right lead change, Vivian has told me that her right lead is actually her stronger lead. So what I'm going to do is, the things I'm going to test out here, I'm going to test them out on a left lead, and I'm going to try to release her to the right lead. So there, I brought my leg on to move her shoulders over a little more with the counter bend, and I got the exact same thing I had at the trot. Only this time my outside leg wasn't coming on to move the hip around, it was just moving the shoulder. And so the pattern that I'm noticing is the combination of leg and reins creates that brace. And so I don't know if it'd be your normal habit or not, but you see what I do is I slow down. I actually brought the pressure on a little stronger, but I slowed down while I did it. And the reason I'm doing that is I think it gets to the horse can give to that pressure even quicker that way. Because one of the things I'm interested in is trying to spend the least amount of time with the horse being wrong. So I'm very okay with letting them make a mistake and getting wrong, but then I don't want them to stay wrong for very long. So as soon as they get wrong about something, I'm going to try to make the puzzle easier so that they can get to the right answer, and then we'll go back and try it again at the harder gate. Now, there's also another little thing that I'm going to mess with here. I need to get her into a left lead to practice what I just did. So I'm going to be strategic when I'm thinking about lead changes, even when I'm not, I guess I do this. I'm going to be strategic about how I ask her for a left lead. Because what I want is when we're in a left lead and I push her shoulder over to the right more, I want to create this button where I can push her shoulder over here and then release her to that right lead, okay? So I want to create that button where it's shoulders over, release, and then lope off, okay? So that's what I'm going to start off with here to the left. So we're going to the right, pushing the shoulders over, releasing my leg, and that's going to be the cue to lope. Now, while we're loping, I'm going to go ahead and mess with that flexion a little bit. So tipping her nose to the right. Now this time she was soft immediately. So I'll go ahead and turn her loose there. We'll keep loping. I'm going to exaggerate her nose to the inside this time. Okay, now that's all feeling pretty good. So now I'm going to try a canter leg yield. Now she got the idea there pretty quickly. I think she might have broke a stride there. But what I noticed right away was the head toss. As soon as I released that pressure, the head toss came through. But what I liked about it was there was a connection pretty quick to that leg coming off to the new lead. So I actually think what has been happening with you is the head stuff has been stealing attention from what her feet did. So even though you've tried them many times, if I could have interviewed her after the ride and said, hey, you and Vivian just had a ride, can you tell me what you worked on? She'd be like, we were cantering and the reins were on and she was messing with my nose, and you know, like she would be focused on that versus you're like, I was working on haunches in, I was working on lead changes and counter canter, and you were working on all these things, but her attention, I believe, was on the bit. And that's what she's telling us, you know, it's just with the head stuff. So I'm pretty confident that that's where it's at. I'm going to try to continue with the lead changes a little bit more, knowing there's some holes there. My recommendation for you is going to be to spend probably 10 rides, not doing lead changes, but focusing entirely on how you apply a feel and getting her to get soft and working through those. But what's interesting about this, and I want the people watching this video to really understand this, we are building depth of understanding to her contact right now. If we ask this horse to do a bunch of really basic things with contact, it would be pretty easy, and that's not going to cut it. You have to ask yourself, let's say we scaled at 1 to 10. Of 10 is like this horse could not have a better understanding of contact. She could not give to it better and understand it and all those things, which means like they're giving to it, you can change their flexion, they will give vertically, but they will stay engaged in their hind legs while traveling forward, they're maintaining rhythm, they don't get bracy. That's what I mean by understanding. So let's say a 10 is they couldn't be better. 1 is like the horse has no clue what you're talking about. It's the first time it's been introduced to them. So that's our scale. I would say to do a lead change, they need a minimum of like a 6.5 to a 7 of understanding of contact to do a flying lead change. To do a walk to canter transition, they probably need a 6 out of 10. So a little bit less than the lead change. I would say to do a trot to canter transition, they need like a 4. You get where I'm going with this? So there's a lot of things that would be easier to ask a horse to do with that contact that this horse could do. So Vivian can't just ride her around at a walk, pick up a feel and turn it loose and fix it. She has to put her in situations like I was talking about earlier, haunches in and out on the circle, cantering and counterbending and counterflexing as you're going around. Like these are harder, higher level skills to do. So this is going to build depth of that understanding so that when we do the lead change part of it, it gets a little easier. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and set that up again. See, like right there, as soon as I picked up a feel, she braced. So I'm going to squeeze her here. So the squeeze is the motivation. And when she gives right there, I'll release. Okay, so you can't ever let that go. That has to be the primary focus to resolve before we can continue. Like in your own mind, when you're riding a horse and you feel that, you have to think, oh, yellow light, slow down. And that's not a green light to keep going here. Ask her to get soft and then release. So we're not going to pass go. We're not going to collect $200 until we get her soft as the first response. Part of what's going on here is this is just kind of an old habit that she has to kick. It's not that she doesn't understand contact and all that. There's just a couple of bad habits that are in there. There we go. So I really enjoyed that one because I literally took my leg off and within a stride, she switched. 0 outside leg came on, which is why we didn't have any fuss in the head because I didn't have to use leg. So what that tells me is there was a connection to that cue. Leg on, over, release, and she did it. I also really like that she wasn't anticipating it strong enough that she was resisting. So what would happen is if we did 3 more of those, as I was leg yielding her over, she would anticipate it and she would start trying to switch before I did it. When you feel that, you don't change leads. And that's the next step for her, is to, once you get a horse changing leads off of a release of pressure like that, the next step is to put them in situations and don't change leads. Canter leg yields, counter cantering, and just different situations, even just steering them around, cantering and turning. I want to let her sit right now, so I'll just explain it. So even if I'm on a left lead, I should still be able to turn right and stay on a left lead. So I would practice, I call that riding guide. So I'm on a left lead. Most people kind of only ride to the left when they're on a left lead. It's like, you should also be able to veer off to the right a little bit. And as long as my right leg is on, she should stay in a left lead. Okay, hope I'm not losing anybody watching this video. This is a deeper level conversation about everything. It's pretty high level stuff. But they need to have that level of foundation to get where you can change leads anytime, which is what Vivian's interested in. It's like, because she needs to be able to change leads during a show at an exact, within 30 feet of the center line, just about 30 feet, which is maybe about 3-4 strides to change leads. So that's pretty much now that it needs to happen. And it needs to be consistent and predictable with everything else going on. So basically we need it to be push button. To get something to be that level of push button, it's also easy to get a horse to anticipate it where they do it when you didn't ask them to. And so that's the thing that you're going to have to keep an eye on right away, because that was really light. And once it's that light, the next thing is they start anticipating it. So you have to, as much as you've been trying on this journey to get the lead change, I just want to caution you to not get overly excited about them and start popping lead changes all the time, and get your horse to where she's always thinking lead change, you know. So just keep that balanced as you're going. But for me, I'm going to quit her on that note, quit this horse. I would like Vivian to get on her and to practice some of those, the giving feels that we talked about, and just kind of have a look at what Vivian's doing riding. But would you agree that kind of did that make sense, or you saw the connection kind of come through there?
Yep. For the haunches in and out, that was a lot worse than she usually is. But I agree that sometimes when you put a leg on, that it's not immediately that she gives. It takes her that second, and the first response is like, maybe not. And then she's like, actually, I can do this.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yep. And that's what we need. And that's where, at some point when she was being ridden, she was kind of being made to stay there, and she wasn't choosing to be there. When a horse is choosing it, and we're talking about a really subtle difference here in how it's cued. This is not a big difference, but it's the difference that makes the difference. And so as she chooses the response and has that connection, that's where all the gold is. And you're right on the cusp of all this. You've done a really fantastic job with her. These are just some little details that are going to make a little bit of an extra difference. One thing that I also want to point out, so I just got on, and the second lead change was kind of what we were looking for. So that could easily make it look like, oh, well, Ryan got it, and yeah, that was great. What you're not seeing is all the components that Vivian's been training this horse to do for a year now or more, and it's like all those ingredients got put together, and there was only, like, she was just off by like this much. There's just that little difference there. And so what I'm saying is, don't give me too much credit. Give Vivian the credit here for this, because it's easy to, when somebody does it, to then kind of take the credit. And this also happens with teaching, and you know as well as I do, like, you could be working with a student for months, and then somebody else shows them the same thing but maybe says a little different, and that was the day they were kind of ready to get it, and they get it. It's like, oh, this instructor is amazing. It's like, what? I've been showing you that for a year, And so I just want to just mention that whenever you see something really kind of happen at that moment, don't undermine all the preparation that's been put in place to get to that spot. That's really important, because Vivian's done a lot of work to get this horse as well trained as she is. And I don't always love showing against her, because she's pretty hard to beat, because she's really consistent with everything. So she's doing a great job. I'm gonna have her get on and test a couple of these things out. Now, here's one other thing I'm gonna mention. And Vivian and I have talked about this, so we're just gonna go ahead and talk about it. Let's put the reins down for a second. As a trainer, one of the number one most important things that you need to have is what? Do you know where I'm going to go with this?
I don't know.
Nope. So before I say this, I'm going to say something else. So I have recently been learning to golf, and golfing is really hard. It's a simple thing to do, hit a ball down the field, but it's really hard to get all the mechanics right. And it's very easy to start getting frustrated and hard on yourself for making mistakes. And I have recently been working with a golf instructor, okay? And he saw that I was getting frustrated and that I was walking up to the ball thinking this isn't gonna work. It's gonna be another bad shot, here we go again. So as I'm approaching the ball, he goes to me, he goes, stop. He goes, you have to walk up there believing it's gonna be the best shot you've ever hit. He goes, if you're not thinking that, you got no chance. And I was like, that sounds like something I say in the horsemanship thing. And so when Vivian stepped on her horse, she made a negative comment, and I said, you've done what did I say? You've done a really good job, or she's a really nice horse. Yeah. And Vivian goes, depends on the day. And I'm going to call her out on that, because as a trainer, you have to have a limitless, eternal fountain of positivity. This is always going to work. It's always going to be the best ride. I know it's not always going to be the best ride, but you will always have the best chance of it being the best ride and going the best if you have that positive energy going into it. Horses get connected to our feel and our energy and our intention unlike anything else. It's really incredible. And you know what I'm talking about. You've seen that before with students and yourself. So I'm just going to call you out on that a little bit, because this has been frustrating. She's been working on this a long time, folks. This isn't like, oh, we just tried this once. She's been putting in hard work into this for a long time. So it's easy to start getting discouraged and getting frustrated with it. But every ride, you got to get on and go, this is going to be the best one. Okay? All right. Go be amazing. So what I want you to do is I want you to just walk her. And as you're walking, I want you to just slowly pick up a feel with the reins. And as you're doing that, a split second after your reins, bring your legs on and hug her with your legs, and you're asking her to maintain the exact same speed and get round and soft to everything. And just keep doing that both directions at a walk, and then we'll do it at a trot as well.
I want her to immediately give before my leg even comes
Yes.
on, right?
That she should start to where she gives before your legs come on. But when your legs do come on, I want you to go ahead and put them on. I don't want it to be a secret, because you're exposing her to understanding that pressure, and that's also important. And when I say pressure, it's literally squeezing your legs. We're probably not even using our spurs at this point. It's just hugging, with your kind of calf. Now, if the horse braces, we are going to use our spur. And a lot of people kind of freak out about that, but it's really the difference of the horse giving to it within a stride or two, or if you ride without spurs, it can be very easy for the horse to lean on it for a very long time. And that ultimately lets them be wrong for too long. One of the misconceptions out there is that horses are very mentally and emotionally fragile, okay? They're very fragile. We have to build their confidence and their understanding in things. And a lot of times people confuse that, and they see a horse that's anxious and they think it's mostly because of the physical pressure. Horses are not that sensitive to physical pressure. They're mentally sensitive and anticipating the pressure coming on. So our job as trainers is to prepare them for it and teach them to understand our aids and understand what's happening. When they do that, you actually get a very confident, very relaxed horse that has an improvement in their overall quality of life everywhere. Now, one thing I want to just state, a phrase that I learned recently that I think is amazing. You can keep riding if you want, if you can still hear me. Is anytime we're learning something new, it's easy to kind of get frustrated and maybe even get a little hard on ourselves about it. And the phrase that I learned recently was, the hard part about learning is it usually has to do with something you know nothing about. Okay? And so the funny part is that it's like, you have to, when you're learning something new, you have to cut yourself some slack and realize you're learning a new challenge, you don't know anything about it yet, and you have to get comfortable going through that process. But maintaining a positive attitude as you go through that is really going to be the key. The second key is whoever is the most willing to put themselves out there and challenge themselves and make mistakes is going to end up getting the furthest, the quickest, okay? The person who doesn't want to feel wrong, doesn't want to put themselves out there, has their ego in the way, and they're anticipating feeling embarrassed about not knowing how to do something, or they're afraid of messing their horse up. They're the ones that are actually going to struggle getting ahead because they don't have any experience along the way. So as you're learning things, now as long as you don't scare your horse, you need to give yourself a license to experiment. You got to go out and try things, you got to experiment, find out what works and what doesn't work, and then seek advice. So you don't want to be wrong for a long time. So like Vivian, for example, she's a member of my Patreon group where she's been sending me videos and coaching and working through this. And luckily she only lives, a state away from me, and she was able to just drive over and get a lesson in person for this example. So keep that in mind. Very nice, Vivian. Is that starting to feel softer already?
It was on the circles, and as soon as I started doing the haunches out, it was not.
Yeah. So what I want you to do is for like 5 rides, pick, and like today is a testing day, so I tested lots of things. What I would do is pick like one of these. Like one would be like walk trotting and loping, pick up a feel, squeeze, ask her to get soft. That would just that. Another one would be, a separate one, would be like changing her flexion right or left and moving the shoulders with your rein and your leg in position 1. Okay, so that would be a separate one. A third one would be playing with the flexion and doing haunches in and out, so using your leg in position 3. Okay, so for those of you, if you've not heard of that before, position 1, can you show us, would be just moving your leg forward. That would be her telling the horse's shoulders to step over. So when I was doing the leg yield, I was actually more or less in position 2 when I did that. So my leg was releasing from here. So she'd have her leg here and then it was coming off, okay? So you want to ultimately do all these different positions. Basically, that's what it boils down to, is test her with this in all positions. But I would commit at least 5 rides to each position and get it really solid before you move on to the next one. And I think that will make it less confusing than trying to do multiple ones in one ride.
When you do move her body like that, do you want me to get her in the neck flexion first and then add the leg, or vice versa?
Yep. Whenever you're asking a horse for a lateral maneuver, in my opinion, I'm gonna set up their flexion first. I follow the rule, nose goes. Because like a lot of times the difference of the movement being correct or not is whether the flexion is there. If the flexion is there, the rest of the body can be correct. If the flexion is not there, then it is or it isn't the right thing. So I would set up the flexion first. We're talking about a split second. It's like I'm getting there, the flexion's going, now my leg's moving. I mean, it's happening within like a second. I mean, they're pretty connected, but the reins are first. Okay. All right, and then when you're ready, I would like you to try the canter leg yield and do a lead change. So you're going to do left lead, and you notice I kind of did like a teardrop at that corner. I kind of turned a little bit sharper, but I gave myself room to leg yield to the fence. And what I was waiting for was that moment where I felt her weight go to the outside towards the fence on that front leg, which was the left front. That's when I released my leg. That was what the timing is to make it really easy for the horse to get the answer.
If he always wants to stop when he does it, just right on? Or?
Yeah, well, you can just trot out of it then. So like if they don't get bracy, but they think about stalling out, then trot on. But if she gets bracy, I would give her maybe 1,000, 1,000 to fix it while you're moving, while you're walking or trotting. If within 1,000 it's not there, slow down. Don't keep riding and powering through it. Okay, so when you're ready, go ahead and do the left lead, and we'll try the lead change. Very nice, very nice. So you're gonna do it right away. So turn. Her nose is to the right. You're riding her shoulders over with your right leg. Whoop. Now, it looked to me like you did two things there. To me, you over-exaggerated her flexion a little bit. And now, I want you to do that when we're doing the prep steps. We'll call all those prep steps, okay? Now we're doing the maneuver. So when we're doing the maneuver, we want everything to be a little more subtle, okay? So change that flexion a little more subtle. And you would also want to take your left leg off a little bit more obviously. Give her room to go somewhere there to the left. I felt like the flexion was a little bit too strong, and then she didn't have a lot of room to go somewhere, and that's when she ends up kicking out. Take your time, take your time. See, in those moments, that's where it's easy for you to get a little stronger, but you'd be better off holding and waiting for her to step off. Good. Very nice. Keep the forward. Ride. Get a little softer in your hands there. Yeah. But to me, you're holding her too much with your hands. When you're teaching a horse the lead change, I would be less picky about her vertical flexion. To me, you're holding her there a little bit too much. Okay? So when she knows the lead change, then you can add in the new variable of going, okay, today we're going to do lead changes with vertical flexion. But I would say today you want less flexion, which is also why you're in a snaffle bit and not in a leverage bit, because we want all of her attention to go to what her feet are doing. So it's okay for her to have her nose out. You can have contact, but we don't want like flexion. Okay? So just a little bit softer there. And then smile. Makes it much better. Okay, I want to hear, this is simple, this is fun, I can do it. No?
As long as she's bracy like that, it's smarter to just keep riding around, not even try, right?
Yeah, wait for her to get soft. But you could even slow down and get her soft there. So for the canter part, that's where you just need to be a little more flexible and realize the moment is about the lead change, not about the other parts of it. Okay, let's go ahead and try that left lead again. And just lope on the left lead for a bit. Now again, try to get there a little slower and hold and wait.
So what would you do when she just locks up for forward motion there? Because she knows I'm setting her up for the left lead. And
yes, but you're getting with your hand, you're getting there a little too strong with your hands. And so you kind of shut her down and then you say go. And that's where you get some of the brace, the kicking out, the tail, all that stuff.
Well, just here, like I was gonna set her up to do a left lead departure.
Yep.
And she just sucks back.
Yep. And she didn't get soft with your hand immediately, and your right hand went like that, and you gave her like a tug to like set her head. You probably didn't even realize you did it. But everything she's doing is telling me why she's slowing down and bracing up is she feels like she can't go forward because of this, which means you got to get a little softer here and get a little slower. Not even softer, but slower is the bigger thing. Just get there a little bit slower. Let her find that flexion on her own. Now, you can, and I would like her to get more tolerant of this. I would like you to be able to go quicker with your hands and have her say yes, but she's not ready for that. And that's once we get to the lead change part, that's not what the conversation is about with your hands. That's the prep steps that you're doing ahead of time. So focus on slower. Try to not use that tug. Try to just hold it. Because you're doing the tug. You're not doing it fast anymore, but you're still doing it. Yeah, from over there to here, your right hand was going like this. And just like you said to me earlier that you found some success more by holding and waiting for her, that's where it's going to be at. But honestly, right now, I would have you give her more of a rein. Give her a little more rein and then just lope her off.
That's what I'm trying to avoid, or even not go.
Yeah. Well, it's up to you. It's like what I'm trying to do is you're trying to have everything be perfect right away. And in doing that, it's taking all of her attention off of the lead change idea and it's putting it onto the departure. And I'm saying that, to be real direct, you need to focus on your feel and being patient and waiting for her to give. But I'm also saying that needs to be separate from the lead changes for now, because it's too distracting.
Well, there, I feel like I'm doing it.
Whoa. Now, is this like a temper tantrum that she throws, like as you get going, or what?
Sometimes I guess she's like started doing this about a month ago or so when I set her up, especially for the lock to do a lead departures, where she does the suck back thing. Because I can get her to lope.
Yeah.
But then I'm not being patient and waiting and making it her idea and all that.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I just throw my reins away and ask like this, she's just going to trot and eventually going to lope at her own timing.
Even that, though, should tell you that you're doing too much to set her up.
I agree.
Because you should be able to go check, check, test, test, hand down, lope off, right, and have them stay in a frame. And but yeah. So you need to practice just how you introduce her to a feel, and you kind of like she's got some bad habits and you've got some bad habits in there, and she's just sensitive enough of a horse that she calls you out on it, you know.
So in that moment, then, what would you like me to do to just get her to lope from the walk?
I would pick up a soft, like a real light feel, and then lope off, and then I would just go smooch, smooch. And then a little inside leg if I had to. So smooch, smooch. Good. Now give her head a little more. Good. Good. Now lope down there in that corner. Now turn. Just a little bit of right flexion. And then leg yield her to the rail. Okay. Okay. So, have we established the lead changes there?
Yeah.
That's not the issue. So the issue boils down to clear communication between you and her. And when she kicked out, like she kicked out pretty strong right there, I mean, I'm going to pick her up and shut that down. Some of that is residual from previous rides. There's bad habits that have been put in here of her being kind of made to go into it, from your hands being a little strong or a little quick, and her being a little overly sensitive, a combination of the two, okay? And what I'm saying is the recipe is you holding, riding her into it, getting her soft, and then releasing her at like a bunch at walk and trot. Because you can see the problem came in right away just in the canter departure. It really didn't have that much to do with the lead changes. And what I'm saying is those days when you had tough time changing leads, it really wasn't about the lead change. It was her, she was distracted by the bit because she has history there. There's some baggage there, you know. Obviously, it's like she just associates it with different things. Even if you're not even doing it, she associates it. And that's what tells me there's some habits in there. Because the way she did it when I was riding, it was more subtle, but she would still do it periodically. And I was like, I didn't add anything different than I did the previous time. All of a sudden now she's popping her head up. She's doing that because she's getting defensive because she's anticipating something that happened previously.
So in all of this, I feel like she's being very, very resistant to my right leg in the lead departure, in the haunches in, haunches out, I mean, she switched leads. I didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there is one now, that's good, but now we're in that next problem.
Yeah, but I'm glad that happened, because I think that will fully convince you that this is not about the lead changes, it's about the stuff that I pointed out right away when I got, we're saying the same thing. The feel that you need to develop is a holding, pressing, and waiting for her to step off. So right now, just practice riding her. We're doing it to the left. So let's ride her in haunches in to the left towards me. Now right there, when she starts tossing her head, hold. Now just hold, hold. Yeah, no leg now, just hold and wait. Just hold and wait.
Leg is off at this point, but on the
there, now give. That's all you have to do right there. A lot. And you're gonna have to do it. And what would be tempting is for you to question me, because you're gonna have days where it goes okay and then days it doesn't go okay. And then you're gonna be like, this works sometimes, this doesn't work all the time. But it's not, that's not the problem. The problem is that there's baggage there. Right. When there's a big difference between learning it for the first time and have developed the habits. Because those habits are in there, she's gonna throw those out here and there periodically. Because the two boxes in her brain of giving, being soft, and understanding what you want, and pressure's about to come on, and I need to brace up and be ready to defend myself, they live right next to each other. So it's gonna be easy for her to flip over there sometimes. What you have to be 1000% sure of, hold, slow down, hold, wait for her to step off. That is the recipe.
Okay. At what point would you not slow down anymore and just keep riding at the walk or the trot?
Remember I already answered that question earlier. I said 1,000, 2 1,000. Yeah, okay. If in with 1,000, 2 1,000 she has not given, you need to slow down. Okay. Because if you don't, you're going to end up doing it wrong for too long. Okay. And that's the balance. As a horse gets more trained, we need to be spending it's never going to be 100% of the ride, but we need to increase. My goal with any horse, like a green horse, is like 50-50. I want at least 50% of the ride to go well, to be winning. Right? But as soon as possible, the next day, I want it like 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, where I'm spending 80% of the time doing what I want them to be doing, which is also what makes me what I would call a conservative trainer. I'm a conservative trainer, meaning I don't lope on the first 3 rides. I don't even lope within the first 3 weeks. I'm lucky if I start loping in the second month. Why? Because I know that if I'm patient and I get the trot really good, and I get their steering really good, and I get the communication really good, once I finally do lope them off, it's going to be a beautiful lope right away. Versus I start loping early and the horse doesn't have all the tools they need to be successful at it. I might teach them to run fast. I might teach them to brace up. I might teach them to take the wrong lead. I might teach all kinds of bad habits because I don't have enough tools to teach them the right things. So that's what I'm saying is being patient there, holding, waiting for her to get off. That'll be the recipe. Let's do it a couple more times. So just ride her towards me with haunches in. Now, even right there, she walked off and you hadn't asked her. Is that what happened? And then
maybe I did have my right leg on here.
And then you pulled her to stop. Yeah. So those are little habits that you're going to have to adjust, because that little pull to stop her just gave her communication to the rein that didn't mean get soft. It meant stop that time. But it's the exact similar feel to when you want her to get soft. And so right there, if I was sitting on a horse and they did that, I'm going to change my seat first and give them a chance to stop. If they don't stop, I'm going to draw one rein and redirect that energy with one rein, not two. Because all those little things start adding up. Okay? There. Good. Perfect. Now turn it loose. So right now, I would basically approach it almost as if you're teaching it. Put your teaching hat back on and say, okay, she's learning, even though she's not, she's learning these for the first time, because that's the approach and the feel that I want you to give to her with it. Once these things are happening more consistently, where it's like, it's a little more rare that it happens, you will actually get to the point. If I was riding her, it would probably be 10 rides. At about 10 rides, if I ask her politely, the way I've been riding for the last 9 rides, and she does the brace up moment, I'm actually going to get pretty big about it. And I'm going to make it really clear to her, that's not what I said. I'm going to lift my rein up. I'm going to drive her hindquarters around and go, there's a correction there. There's a no, we're not doing that behavior anymore. And then I'll put her back into that position and relax. Whatever position we were in. It could be just riding and giving, all those 3 that we talked about. Does that make sense? But before I put the emphasis on her, I want to put it on you, because you have to change some of the habits that you have first. Which is when she starts bracing, you start wanting to tug and do little things. And you got to just go back to the holding. And you already told me when you got here that was the answer. We just need to do that even more. Once you've done that, once you've ridden her like 10 times, I want you to let me know how it's going. Okay? And basically, I want to know if you're ready to have permission to correct her now when she does that. So instead of you being patient and doing the teaching part of it, you're going to be like, no, I definitely, because in 10 rides, your consistency should go up. Where your feel and how you're doing it should be consistent. Like over there, when you went to lope off and she got all wiggy, and then she bucked, and then you had to bend her around. That was her. That was her anticipating things previous. Those are good moments to correct. To pick her up and say, no, I didn't say that. That's not a good moment to just hold it wait and for her to give. Does that make sense? But down the road in 10 rides, that's what I'm saying. You're going to get to a moment where you're maybe riding Haunches in and she does a little head toss. You're going to make a big deal about it. You're going to pick her up and go, no, we're not doing that anymore. And that's how you're going to get rid of that habit. But for now, it's focused on you adjusting and not being impatient and trying to make it happen or getting firmer. You're going to be slow. You're going to hold and wait, slow it down, and give. And use the 1/1000, 2/1000. So if you're trotting and you pick up and she tosses, 1/1000, 2/1000, she's soft, we can continue on. 1/1000, 2/1000, she's still doing it. We're going to stop, we're going to slow down, move that hip over, wait for her to get soft, and release there. Is that clear?
Yes.
Clear enough anyway? The other thing that's kind of fun is you got this on video, so you can go back and watch. And because there's a few moments where I don't know if you completely believe me, and you're going to be able to go back and watch the tape and see who was doing what. I know. I think that's gonna be you have some bad habits that you're not even aware that you were doing it. Yep. There you go.
So when she gets crooked on me like that,
hold and wait and be patient. Whenever a horse gets crooked, it's because they're not thinking forward and going somewhere.
So you use both legs together, right? I just held my hands with it where she was already soft in my hands.
Yeah.
But her belly went to the left.
But ultimately, though, it's coming from a lack of understanding of what to do with it. When you pick up a feel, she should get soft in your hands. She should maintain whatever speed you were at. And then thirdly, she should give to whatever leg, step off of whatever leg you applied. In that order. Does that make sense? So if she's losing forward, yes, you can bring on both legs. But the first thing before you worry about that is observe what her head did. Because that's where the primary problem is the head tossing. But the second problem is then she thinks about slowing down, which leads to the bucking and kicking out. That's because she feels like she can't go anywhere. So, but I'm saying in this last moment when she got crooked, she wasn't being bad. She was just preparing for what she thought was coming next. And this is it. I mean, this is fixing it right here. It's just constantly reinforce that. And then you have to develop these habits so that when you start adding speed to it, trotting and loping, that you're maintaining that same composure and same feel. All right, come on over here, Vivian. So now, Vivian, so tell me what did you learn? What were your takeaways from that lesson?
Well, like we assumed, it's not about the actual lead change. It's just about her taking over and her bracing way before that. So I guess I'm glad we found some holds that were actually probably way early in her training,
Yep.
where she just braces and it's more about her head, which explains that head toss. And yeah, I mean, she changed leads without me even asking, right? Where I thought about it, but I didn't ask yet. So it's good that it's there, and I think I can fix that easily if I just counter canter and don't always let her switch.
Yep.
But yeah, if I go ahead and work a lot, I think one of the big holds was when I lay one leg on. I don't have that hug on her anymore that helps her break over, because she knows when I put two legs on her, the next thing I'm going to ask her is to get soft in the face, and if I do it the opposite direction, use my reins first and then the leg, that was different for her, and that definitely got a lot more brace out of her. So I'm glad we found that, so we can work on it. Yeah.
Super. Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. And I want to thank you for coming out and being willing to put yourself out there in front of everybody and let us video this, because a lot of people are too shy to, or their ego is too much in the way of willing to do this. But she's working on some really high level stuff, and this mare can be pretty sensitive at times, and so she's calling her out on any little thing. Like Vivian's not doing anything that's really really big and really obvious that would be a problem, but these little things are going to end up making the difference in the long run. So yeah, great job. It's not about the lead change. It's about, first of all, her understanding when you pick up the reins, for her first thought, the beginning of it is to get soft. The beginning, the middle, and end. The beginning to get soft. Part two is for her feet to stay freed up. And this is a common problem. This is actually more of like a Western version of this issue. You guys have probably seen dressage people talk a lot about the horse kind of shutting down when they pick up contact and not staying engaged or through or engaged in their hind leg. That's a really common thing in dressage because they have to have a lot of contact to adjust the horse's weight. So it's common that a horse will think about slowing down. And I've heard them say the walk can be like the hardest gait to get a good score at, because the horse starts thinking about sleeping. So what she does is she starts thinking about slowing down and stopping, but that is more from a lack of understanding more than anything else. She's not being lazy. She's saying, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, and I don't know if I can continue to go forward, because sometimes those mean stop. Okay, and so that's where you got to just be patient with her and continue on until she finds the answer. Then the third thing is you just prepping her and having these things in order before you try the lead change, and not doing a lead change once she's anticipating it. And that's what we said after I did it. I was like, she's right there in that moment where she's going to start anticipating it, because it can't get that light without the next thing being them anticipating it. Yeah. And so that's kind of what's going on. But I think it was good for you to feel that, because now you're like, yeah, it's not about the lead change. That button's right there when she's not distracted by this. So awesome. Well, thanks for coming out, and thanks for letting us film this. Good work.
Yeah.
You're a champ. All right, well, keep up the good work, and maybe we'll get another video this fall if we get a chance to go over to Vivian's barn and check in with these guys, see how they're doing. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys on the next one.